Savior. And though I may be small, you are strong, and you'll carry me all of my days. I'm not as strong as I'll be, but I'm growing. I'm not as strong as I'll be one day, but my God, He is faithful, He's strong, and He's able, so I'll never be afraid. When the sun is sinking low and the day is done, I'll get down on my knees and I'll thank the one who is my Father and friend and my Savior forever. I'm not as strong as I'll be, but I'm growing. I'm not as strong as I'll be one day, but my God, He is faithful, He's strong, and He's able, so I'll never be afraid. I'm not as strong as I'll be, but I'm growing. I'm not as strong as I'll be one day, but my God, He is faithful, He's strong, and He's able, so I'll never be afraid. I'm not as strong as I'll be, but I'm growing. I'm not as strong as I'll be one day, but my God, He is faithful, He's strong, and He's able, so I'll never be afraid. I'm not as strong as I'll be, but I'm growing. I'm not as strong as I'll be one day, but my God, He is faithful, He's strong, and He's able, so I'll never be afraid. Yeah, my God, He is faithful, He's strong, and He's able, so I'll never be afraid.
Welcome in. I hope that you enjoyed those few moments of worship, and I hope that these songs, even though we're not able to do them together in our JumpStart room or on campus, I hope that there's something that every week you look forward to being able to sing and to praise and to dance along to the motions and things like that. I know that I miss doing that with you guys, and I can't wait for hopefully when we can get back to doing that together here on campus. But I want to go ahead and dive into our story today, and it comes from Matthew chapter 22. And today's story is a little bit interesting. Now, remember last week we talked about the triumphal entry, where Jesus entered the city of Jerusalem and the people were lining the streets and they were celebrating and praising who He was. While Jesus was in Jerusalem, there were a couple of moments where He stopped to teach. He had some parables that He told and some different things that were going on. But today, what we're going to focus on is a story that it's a little bit different. It's a little bit confusing, and it's going to be kind of a story that that makes us think this morning. Because see, what happens in Matthew chapter 22 is the religious leaders, the Pharisees, the leaders of the temple, they came up with a plan to try to trick Jesus. See, you may think that's a little bit weird. You think, why would the religious leaders want to trick Jesus? Shouldn't they be on His side? But what we see in the New Testament as we read through the story of Jesus is that the religious leaders, that they didn't all believe that what Jesus was saying was true. They didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah, the one who had come to save them. And so they worked very hard to try to prove that Jesus wasn't who He said He was. They worked to try to trick Jesus or to try to trap Jesus so that they would be able to prove and show people that Jesus was not who He said He was. And the story we find in Matthew chapter 22 is the Pharisees and the religious leaders coming to Jesus, and they have two questions for Him that they hoped would trap Him, that they hoped would trick Him, and that He would not be able to answer. The first question that we find is in Matthew chapter 22, verse 15, and it says, "The Pharisees went out and they laid plans to trap Jesus in his words. They sent people to him and they said, 'Teacher, we have a question for you.' And one of the men, he reached into his pocket and he pulled out some money and he said, 'Should we pay taxes to Caesar, who is the Roman emperor, or should we pay them to God?'" Now, that's kind of a weird question. You may be sitting at home thinking to yourself, I don't even understand that question. What is such a big deal about it? Well, here's the thing. See, the Roman Empire, they were in control of everything, and Caesar was the head of the Roman Empire. And what the religious leaders were trying to do is they were trying to get Jesus in trouble because they wanted Jesus to say, "Oh, don't give anything to Caesar. You shouldn't give anything to him. You should always give to God and put him first." But Jesus knew what they were trying to do. If Jesus would have made a statement like that, then Caesar and the Romans, they would have been upset with him. They would have said, "Hey, you can't teach people this. You can't tell people this." And the religious leaders would have won. They would have trapped Jesus. But on the other hand, if Jesus would have said, "No, only give to Caesar," then the religious leaders would have said, "Well, we're not supposed to put anything before God, and you're contradicting that." And they would have trapped him. And so Jesus is faced with a question that we may look at and think is kind of weird, but really, it was a tough question. And what's interesting is we find Jesus' answer in Matthew chapter 22 as he goes on. He looks at the people around, and the Bible tells us very clearly, it said Jesus knew their evil intent. He knew that the question was trying to trap him. He knew that they were trying to trick him. And so Jesus said, it's a verse that a lot of people probably know. Your parents probably know it, and maybe you've even heard it before. Jesus took a coin and he looked on both sides of it and he said, "Render or give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's." Jesus answered their question, and the Pharisees and the religious leaders, they looked at one another and they realized that their plan had failed. They realized that Jesus' answer, that it had handled this situation perfectly. Both sides were satisfied with this answer. And so the religious leaders, they went away frustrated. But they weren't done yet. See, they came back to Jesus with a second question. And they said, "Jesus," they said, "tell us, what is the greatest commandment?" Now again, they were trying to trick Jesus. They wanted Jesus to rank the commandments, to rank how they should follow God, or which ones were important and which ones were not. But the Bible tells us in Matthew chapter 22 that once again, Jesus understood what was happening. He knew what was going on here. So when they asked him, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment?" Jesus had a response that, again, you guys have probably heard. He said, the first commandment, he said, the greatest commandment is this. This is Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. He said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind." And then he said this afterwards. He said, "The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." And in this moment, the Pharisees, the religious leaders, they once again knew that Jesus had outsmarted them, that Jesus had answered the question perfectly. See, Jesus summed up, they were trying to get Jesus into the minutia, into the small details of what should we do first, and what's the most important, and how should we do this, and what should we act in this way. But Jesus said none of that matters. All of that pales in comparison to these two commandments: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, the Pharisees and the religious leaders in this moment, they realized that they had been beaten, and so they leave Jesus alone. But I want us to learn something from these two answers of Jesus today. The one thing that I think we can learn is we can begin to see and understand that there were some people who doubted who Jesus was, whether Jesus was really the Messiah who had come to save them. And they tried to trick him, and they tried to trap him, and they tried to make all of these ways or excuses to show that Jesus was not who he said he was. But Jesus proves in these moments, he answers these questions with wisdom and with power, showing and proving that he was who he said he was. That he was not just a normal man who had to think through the answers, or who may have messed up at moments, or who may have stumbled over his words or said the wrong thing. He knew what they were trying to do, and he answered with power and authority and with wisdom, and showed that he was who he said he was. But I love this story, and I love these two questions, because not only do we learn this cool fact about Jesus, of him confirming who he was, that he was the Messiah who has come to save us, but we also learn a great principle from Jesus in these moments. The important thing for every one of us in our lives is to remember that first and foremost, we're called to love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our mind, and with all our strength. That's everything that we are. That everything we are needs to be about loving God and putting Him first in our lives. But Jesus doesn't stop there. He says also, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And right now, as you guys are getting back into school, or you're doing school online, or maybe you're staying home more, and so you're with your parents or your grandparents more, things like that, this is a great thing for us to remember. That Jesus said the two most important things you could do: love me with everything you have, and love the people around you. It may be hard sometimes to love the people around us. Maybe they get on our nerves. Maybe they annoy us. Maybe we get tired of them. We lose patience. But it's a great reminder that we can look to Matthew chapter 22 and see where Jesus tells us that first and foremost, we're to love Him with everything in us. But a close second is to love those around us.